Hi and welcome to Magic Numbers. This is episode number 161, and today we're going slightly deeper into the Edge of Eternities, and we're going to be trying to find the best home for each of the cards in the set, or at least a good chunk of the cards in the set. Some cards who are just not yet having the numbers or are not interesting and should not find any home apart from sideboard. Before we go into that, I'd like to thank my patrons, and we have 3 new patrons this week. There is Henrietta, there is Reese, and there is Snufkin. So welcome, all 3 of you, and hope you're enjoying the Patreon. I saw that some of them already joined the Discord. Time to start contributing to it and participating in the community. Discord, which by the way is free, you don't need to be a patron to join it. So if you feel so, do join. You can find the link on my Linktree or something. Do some work. I don't have to do all the work for you. Right. Today's preamble, slightly novel concept that I had and pondering the format for the last couple of days. I did notice that the win rate structure of this set is relatively flat. This is where the win rate data is falling a bit short. If all the cards are having like around 55, 56% win rate, then what truly is good? And I think that today's episode is a good attempt of trying to figure that out, because potentially a card can have 56% win rate while having a 60% win rate in one color pair and 52% win rate in the other color pair. Now, obviously, those cases are not very common. Usually when a card is good, it's good across the board, but not all of them. So today we're going to be trying to find those niche cards that are good in one, or actually bad only in one of the archetypes, which is even more tricky because people remember playing it in 3 other color pairs and they think, oh dear, that must be pretty good because it was good in the other 3 color pairs. Now I'm going to put it in the 4th color pair where the card is absolutely not performing. But generally flat win rate will make evaluation of the cards a bit tougher. And I will try to, first of all, add the granularity that you need to properly evaluate card power today in today's episode. And I will be figuring out ways of how to deal with that flat win rate structure in the next episode when we can go into the draft portion and seeing if that flat win rate structure is linked to the pick preferences or things like that. All right, but we also have a question of the week from the No Blessed Man. How to recognize good cards from the ones that are piggybacking early in the format. And this has to do with the fact that I told last week that a lot of green commons have a relatively high win rate, but I'm expecting that at least some of them are piggybacking on the power of the color and its openness in the first days. And this is how you will recognize it. The drop in the win rate of cards that were piggybacking is going to be more dramatic than a drop in the win rate from the cards that were just generically good. And you can see that's in the data. So here is the change in win rate between the first 3 days when green was disproportionately open and the rest of the format so far when green started being drafted properly. And first of all, we see the most unique cards. These are the ones that don't piggyback because these are the ones that bring something to the table on their own. And we have the Biosynthetic Burst, Gene Pollinator, Diplomatic Relation, to some extent Galactic Wayfarer. These cards didn't drop by much in terms of the win rate, even though green has decreased in its win rate altogether. There is one outlier in Maelstrider's Gear that actually increased in its win rate, and probably people are finding good homes for that particular card. It's not going to be very easy because these are very specific even within a color pair. So today, for example, we won't learn that much about the Maelstrider's Gear, but seems like some people have found them. And you have to keep in mind, win rate of that card is not very strong, not very high, which means that it's easy to improve if your win rate is rubbish from the start. And then we have like a bunch of averages. The Blooming Stinger, Ice Cave Crusher, Fungal Colossus. But then we go to cards that had massive drops in their win rate. And I'm talking about Thawbringer and Germinating Worm in particular. these two cards have dropped by roughly 2.3, 2.5 percentage points in terms of their win rate compared to the first 3 days. These were the cards that surprised everyone in the first days, and now they reverted to the mean and showed that they are what they seem to be in the set reviews, sort of average cards. Hello, Mad Moses. Welcome to the stream, and thanks for the raid. So yeah, as I expected, Germinating Worm and Topbringer both were piggybacking on the power and openness of the green from the first days, and now you can see they dropped much more dramatically than any other green card. And you can see that in this graph where I showed the change of the win rate of all the cards in the format, and I colored them according to their color identity. These are only commons, by the way. And you can see that a bunch of green cards are in this lower zone with the biggest drop, partially related to the fact that green amassed the biggest drops, but partially linked to the fact that those were piggybacking on this unprecedented openness of green in the first couple of days that probably put a lot of people on the wrong tracks for the rest of the format, because they will be thinking, oh, this is the format with busted green. Now, the interesting feature of this graph is that when you try to track a trend, you will see that it sort of goes down. So cards that had poor win rate actually improve over the first days, and cards that had high win rate usually sort of decrease their win rate on average. I think that there is a slight negative trend. But when you look at green specifically, you have the opposite kind of situation when it's the poorer cards that had a bigger drop and the stronger cards that have a smaller drop. And this is also another symptom of piggybacking. You can see that this color has decreased, not because it's a weak color, but because it was it started to be drafted appropriately. No, there is no cheat way to discover it on the day. However, without a miss, I predicted that it's going to be the Thawbringer and the Worm. These cards look like they are not strong enough on their own merit, so they must have been piggybacking, and it's indeed these two cards that have seen this particular larger drop. Although, I mean, I also put a third card in that category, Ice Cave Crusher, but this one still stays strong. So turns out it's still good, and I think that Trample is everything that the main contributor to that paradox. Okay. A bit about the metagame evolution. Not much really changed. A bit more 2 colors in splash, 3 color and 3 colors in splash decks. I guess that has to do with the fact that people started, 17Lands users started drafting a bit more green across those the second week. And potentially there is also a bit more competition for the good cards, so people have to supplement with something else, and they started to splash. Maybe they got a bit more confident. But we're talking about a change of 2 color decks were 71%, and now they're 68.5%. So it's not nothing dramatic there at all. In terms of the win rates, first of all, surprisingly, the win rate for 17Lands users stayed relatively identical between week 1 and week 2. Here we see one big drop. Monocolors decks with the splash went from 57 to 55%, but they are such a small fraction of the metagame that it doesn't really change much. 2 color decks, the ones that are 70% of the metagame, increased from 55.2 to 55.4. Minor, but normally at this stage we see a small decrease in the win rate across from week 1 to week 2, because week 1 people abuse the open strategy, and week 2 they learn that they cannot do that anymore. Well, I think in this format there was a lot of suboptimal drafting going on in the first week, and second week people, even though everyone else got the understanding of which cards are important, 17Lands users corrected for their incapabilities of the first days, and I think that is the main contributing factor to the fact that the win rate stayed roughly the same. In terms of the play popularity of the color pairs, Simic increased. It was 13.7, now it's 14.8% of all the decks, so above the 10% threshold that you would expect in a perfectly balanced format. In fact, 6 decks are above that threshold, and most of them increased in their fraction across the recent week. So Gruul is the second; it increased minimally. Dimir increased from 11.4 to 12%. Rakdos is the only one that dropped from 11.1 to 10.6. And then we have like Selesnya, which stayed roughly the same at 11%. Azorius stayed the same at around 10.5%. And Orzhov increased from 9.4 to 10.2. And then we have the 3 decks that are least played, and all of them show drops. Izzet from 8 to 7.5, Golgari from 7 to 6.5, and Boros from 5.5 to 4%. So now officially Boros is almost not drafted by the 17Lands users. Does it have any bearing on the win rate? Well, I'm glad you asked. So here's the win rate changes. First of all, Rakdos dropped in popularity, but skyrocketed in win rate. It increased from 54 to 55.5. That's 1.5% across over more than in the first week is quite a big improvement. Simic, on the other hand, has felt the fact that it's the most drafted, even more most drafted deck, dropped from 57 to 56.2, and it's still number 1 in week 2, but barely. It went from being in a tier of its own when it had over a percentage point advantage over the next second archetype in week 1. Now it has 0.1 percentage point advantage over Gruul, 56 versus 56.1, and it's close to Orzhov 55.7 and Rakdos 55.6. So we have like 4 decks in this tier 1: Simic, Gruul, Orzhov, and Rakdos. Selesnya has dropped by 0.8 percentage point as well, so from 55.8 to 55. And that drops it into what I will call the second tier. So it's Selesnya, Azorius, and Dimir at around 55%. It's still close. It's like between 56 and 55% win rate in the first 6 decks. And then we have the ones that are falling behind: Golgari, Izzet, and Boros. Golgari 53, Boros 53, both of them 53.4 really, and Izzet 52.3. And yes, they are last, but I don't think that they are unplayable. I just trophied with Izzet yesterday, and I know that, as I mentioned last week, Corticals was winning quite a lot with Izzet. I think a lot of the bad win rate in Izzet is just incapability of building it, and hopefully after today's slides you will be having better skill set on thinking what to put in Izzet, what cards are important. It might be that Izzet is also suffering from the Relic success. Relic, thank you Nitrous Mob from the chat. Relic is a card that is technically perfect for Izzet decks. It's an artifact value piece. But every other deck wants it, and therefore Izzet won't get it. Although I still see Cryogen Relics going way too late. Well, that's the status of the metagame. Few shifts, and as I said, the generic win rate stayed relatively the same. However, yes, the Rakdos increase was one of the few prominent increases in terms of the win rate across the format. But a lot of archetypes stayed the same, and only really Simic and Selesnya dropped significantly. Okay, so today's topic is figuring out the right homes for the right cards. And to do so, we need to do a calculation that couple of calculations. So first of all, I calculate the color combination win rate. But I do it slightly differently than in the table on 17Lands. I calculate it based on game and hand win rate, just because I'm going to be using game and hand win rate for the other things. And then I take the cards' individual game and hand win rate for that color pair, and take away the color pair's win rate that I calculate based on the game and hand win rate. And then if that difference is high, which means cards' win rate is much higher than the color's win rate, then that card will improve decks in general. And if the number is low, which means that the card's games in hand win rate is lower than the average for the archetype, that card makes the deck worse. And you know, when you see those kind of numbers, your gut instinct will be that everything above 0 is good, but it's not completely true. Um, because your deck, 0 will be an average card in your deck. Your deck has 23 cards. You will have some cards that will have the below average win rate. And therefore, I'm sort of estimating that anything over -1 is probably fine to put in your deck. You're absolutely no shame in putting cards that have -1. You don't want them to be majority of your deck, but definitely the lower end of the deck, your 15th to 23rd cards. If they are -1, that's fine, because you should have some good uncommons, good rares that will be multiple percentage points above that average and will compensate. And your deck still is going to be an above average deck in this color combination. Okay, so time to start. Time to look at the first numbers. And I decided to start with the colorless cards because they are in every color combination, and we can go through some other details of the tables because you're going to be seeing a lot of them. So you might as well get used to it. So first of all, I put the base win rate of each color combination over the column that it says. So for example, Azorius' base win rate is 56.5, but Boros's base win rate is 53.4, and I don't know, Simics is 57.6, and then Demir is 57.3. These are different from the numbers that you've seen in the previous tables because game in hand win rate is impacted by the game duration. Decks that want to play longer games, like Demir, will have a lot of games where they win and the game lasts longer, so they draw lots of cards. So because of that, the game in hand win rate of cards in those decks will be slightly skewed. So keep that in mind. But because I use game in hand win rate to calculate the difference, I had to use the game in hand win rate based color win rate. Okay. Then in each table, cards are arranged. Oh, I need to quit Discord, otherwise the messages are going to kill me. In each table, the cards are arranged from the highest average number of those percentages that you can see to the lowest one. So basically, Pinnacle Killship is the most universal of the colorless cards, while Command Bridge is the most unplayable one. That's sort of how the order goes. Doesn't mean that that the lowest card cannot be put in some decks, but in general, it's going to be from bad to mediocre at best. But Pinnacle Kinship actually has solid numbers. Apart from Azorius and Orzhov, it has stuff in the area of 0, maybe 1%, which is good. And in specifically Golgari, so black green, and in Gruul in red green, it has over 2 percentage points above that base level. And this is great for a common. It means that Gruul decks actively want Pinnacle Killships. Golgari decks actively want Pinnacle Killships. That's the level of best commons in the set. So there is your secret home for Pinnacle Killship. But it's also pretty solid in Izzet and in Simic decks, so in blue-red and blue-green, while being appropriate in every other color combination, as I said, apart from Azorius and Orzhov. Turns out it's very hard to double spell with Pinnacle Killships. And that tracks with my feeling. That card is always problematic when it hits the board. It does quite a lot for a common. It's, dare I say, fulfilling a similar role as Imperial Oath, this kind of stabilizer that later takes over the game. And not in the same way, but there are similar, similar kind of roles in the deck. Absenta. So Mark was right on the sweeper versus killship topic. Yes, not only was right. Last episode, I actually made a graph about it. Oh, some people are not there. Some people find it blasphemous to compare Killship to Imperial Oath. I know that feelings are strong about this comment from 3 years ago. However, I'm going to go there. It plays the same role, as in it brings certain amount of inevitability to a deck that is slower at its top and at common. And it is a sort of like a common that brings this kind of rare power level in a way that it kills you very quickly. It's not as good as Imperial Oath. I'm not claiming that. I just say that it plays the similar role, very much like a ferret is playing the same role as a lion in an ecosystem, but not necessarily. I'm going to compare ferrets to lions. I'm pretty sure that people have used killship to station a killship. Okay, then we have the second one, which is the Wormhole Sweeper. That's the small spacecraft. And as you can see, these are the best of the colorless common cards, 2 spacecrafts. And that means that they did something right in there. This one on the other, but this one is much worse. I mean, you don't want to be playing it in any of the defensive color combinations, so nothing in the Sultai / Timur kind of part of the color pie. Potentially, maybe in some white-green decks, it can be playable. But the best homes for it, and good homes actually, for the sweeper are Azorius and Boros, where it has plus 0.5 and plus 1 percentage point of this delta win rate between the color pair and the card. So it's absolutely solid in Boros and in Azorius. Problem with Boros, and it will be a problem for every card we discuss in Boros, is that Boros has a naturally low win rate already. Because it has a naturally low win rate, it's easy to improve on the low. Yep. If you have £5 on your bank account, it's easy to double it. If you have 5,000, not as easy to double it. And I found Wormhole Sweeper perfectly serviceable. I liked it as in my sort of mid-term decks. And by mid-term, I understand the decks that spend first few turns on developing some kind of an engine and then take over the game by going out of control. And I think that white-blue and potentially white-red could be those kind of decks. Rather than focusing on strictly aggro strategies, they can use the first turns to assemble an engine. In case of white-blue, it may be this 1/1 token generating signpost uncommon, and I played the deck with 4 of those yesterday, and it was fun to have like multiple drones hovering on turn 3 already, because you started turn 2 signpost, turn 3 signpost into something else. You get 2 drones extra, and your board is really wide very quickly. So yeah, it has its homes, and the fact that it lets you smoothen your draws is also pretty good. Also, from what I noticed in the Azorius, the fact that it's colorless is pretty useful, because I noticed that I had often the problem of, yes, I have 2 spells I could cast, theoretically, but I don't have the right mana, because I just got the wrong combination of islands and plains, and these are the only lands you will get in this format. And because of that, I cannot do my double spell turn. Well, with Sweeper, it's much easier, because you almost always manage to get some sort of double spell combination with the Sweeper. So another plus on that. Okay, and last card that actually is not useless everywhere, however not very useful in many places, is Nutrient Block, the indestructible artifact food that you can sacrifice, and when it's put into graveyard, you draw a card. And the best homes for it are black-red, blue-black, and white-blue. And, you know, in white-blue, it's an easy thing to double spell, and it draws a card, so it fuels your future double spelling, so that's why. In blue-black, it allows you some kind of a card draw while preserving your life total, something that is maybe important for you. And in black-red, it's something that you can easily sacrifice and get synergies from the sacrificing part of it. So I think that it shows to me that Nutrient Block is not generically a good card. And, you know, numbers in like white, red, and white, green, atrocious at -6. But even in like blue, green, it's -2.6. In black, green, -4. In red, green, almost -3. This shows me that the Nutrient Block is a card that needs to add something extra on top of the spinning the wheels kind of stuff that it does. It needs to contribute to some sort of synergy. And, you know, blue-red usually has the artifact synergies, and there it's -1.6, which is not great, potentially passable, but, you know, if you squint really hard, which means that it has to not even in every synergy kind of that it can ensure it's still good. And then we have two other cards, Chrome Companion and Command Bridge. Chrome Companion maybe shows a bit of promise in blue-black decks, but that's about it. And Command Bridge, some minor promise in blue, green, and black, green, which are probably the best homes for multicolor Dirtle. And then we have colorless cards that are higher rarity. And starting with the rares, Anti-Causal Vestige is on top of the pile. It's really great in every color combination. Now, we didn't get enough data for white-red for most of those cards, so it just won't happen. But Anti-Causal Vestige, good across board. Weirdly, slightly worse in blue-red. I don't know exactly why, but in most color combinations, it's at around 3-4 percentage points improvement. So now we're seeing like a proper bomb level kind of numbers, and this is going to be around 4 or higher, and some cards will go way higher than 4. When uncommons will probably peak at around 3, and commons will peak at around 2. Then the second card that actually did surprise me to some extent. I mean, I knew it's solid, but I didn't just realize how solid it is. Secluded Starforge. That's the colorless land, and it has 2 tap X untapped artifacts you control. Target creature gets +X+O until end of turn. Activate as a sorcery. And then 5 tap, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. And I thought, that's going to be like good maybe in like blue-red and maybe black-red or something. But in fact, almost across board, except for maybe white-blue, this card has 3 percentage point improvement in white-black, in blue-red, in blue-green, black-red, black-green, and red-green, all of those colors. And it's still solid in blue-black and white-green. So as I said, only Azorius, it's minus 0.3, which is still something that makes me okay to put the card in the deck, especially if it's a land. But probably all the other homes are just so much better. So don't sleep on that card if you never put it in your deck, and if you never pick it. This is probably better than most, if not artifacts that you can pick, uncommons that you can pick, and most of the rares, in fact. And it's something that you can put in almost every deck. So when you pick it early, you're picking something that does not put you in the particular direction, apart from white-blue. And we don't know about Boros because not enough numbers. Then the card that I actually have experience with, the Thrumming Hive Pool. And yeah, it matches my experience. The card was very good every time I played it, and it shows so. Slightly worse in blue-green, slightly worse in white-blue, because again, hard to double spell with the 6 drop. But really good in white-black, white-green, black-red specifically, red-green, and black-green. All those colors, it looks quite great. Like in black-green, there's 4 percentage point improvement. In red-green, also similar number, and around 2.5 in Orzhov, Selesnya, and Golgari. So yeah, pretty solid. Then we have the Extinguisher Battleship. That's the 10/10 battleship that destroys a non-permanent and non-creature permanent, and then deals 4 to every creature in board, 8 mana, and then it crews 4/5, and it's a 10/10 flying trampler. This card has my name on it. I've been losing to it quite a lot in the Arena Directs. Always cleared my board, and then it's really hard to deal with because you can't like kill it proactively because it's not a creature. And then when it's a creature, it usually gets 1 attack, and that sometimes is just enough because it's a bloody 10/10. So if you don't have instant speed kill spells, it will be a problem for you. And it's great in those decks that you would consider being slower. So like Gruul, Golgari, Simic, Dimir. Also solid in Izzet, which can be faster, can be slower. And, not great in Azorius. Again, double spelling with an 8-drop, rough and tough. And at around 0 in Selesnya. And we have no data for Orzhov, which is actually surprising to me, but we don't. potentially because it always rats all your board because you have a bunch of small creatures on board. Yeah. No, I'm semi-serious about this double spelling, but notice that those colorless cards at rare are quite expensive. So Vestige at 6, Thrumming Hivepool at 6, and Extinguisher Battleship at 8. And yeah, that can be problematic. Then there are the uncommons, and Dauntless Scrapbot is probably one of the more interesting cards in this format in terms of finding a home for it. And I think that lots of people just put it, oh, that's just an alternative version of Galaxy Wayfinder for my Simic deck. But actually, it doesn't perform very well in Simic. It's not disqualifying or anything, but it's minus 0.2. And that's one of the weakest homes that it has. The only one weaker is Gruul, another deck with landers. And I think that here it's sort of like, if you need to get your landers from Dauntless Scrapbot and you're playing Gruul, then probably you shouldn't be playing Gruul. And I think that might be the reason for it. However, in color combinations that don't have landers naturally, but probably would want to, like blue-black, like black-red, it does perform quite well. It has also good numbers in almost all the white decks. So like Azorius, Orzhov, and Boros, 0.3, 0.5, 0.8. Slightly below rate in Selesnya, which I think maybe wants to be playing this kind of doesn't need to ramp kind of game. Also, Selesnya has green, which means that you should be getting the Wayfarers and not Scrapbots. And that's the simple solution for that. It doesn't have a plus. Dauntless Scrapbot doesn't have a plus in anything that contains green. And I think that, yeah, my explanation is quite likely there. That if you're playing green, you should have better versions of putting landers on the battlefield. And this also made me think about general design strategy for WotC. I've been looking at the power of cards of different colors a couple of months ago, and I did find that those colorless commons and uncommons are usually something that you shouldn't put in your deck. And I thought to myself, maybe they should. I don't think that they should be like the most busted common in the set should be an artifact. But I would say maybe the most average common in the set should be an artifact, because that would be potentially a mechanism to self-correct drafts. If a color pair is weaker on commons, and because of that is unplayable, and because of that, the format is not balanced really, maybe a bunch of medium quality colorless things that you can put in those weaker decks that don't have any commons draft, so they will be, like staring at a blank pack. Giving them a couple of those solid colorless cards will be able to push those archetypes a bit higher and reduce the delta between the top archetypes and low archetypes, while at the same time top archetypes will not have to be bothered with those medium cards because they have plenty of medium cards in their own colors, rather than looking at the colorless ones. That's just my thought. Okay, then we have Survey Mechan, LSV's favorite build round. And this card is really, really good in black, green, and Gruul. This is and also solid in blue, green. Sort of unfair comparison because this card will be played in multicolor decks, and I don't analyze multicolor decks. But still, a lot of those blue-green decks will have splashes. They are counted into those into this data, and a lot of those Golgari decks and the Gruul decks will also have splashes. And Survey Mechan looks like it's great in there. In order to fully show the potential of that card, we probably all need to look at all the multicolor decks, and then it would be abundant and probably powerful. But at least the numbers that it shows in Gruul, Simic, and Golgari decks that do play it, which, by the way, if they do play it, then they probably have multiple lands. If they have multiple lands, they probably are splashing. So it's sort of self-selecting. It's not like the decks that play, Anti-Causal Vestige don't necessarily look the same as the decks that play Survey Mechan even within the color pair. You have to keep that in mind. But at least those numbers look very promising that a dedicated multicolor Survey Mechan deck can also be pretty good. And the last card we have there is All Fates Scroll, the mana rock that you can sacrifice and draw the number of cards where the number is equal to the number of lands with different names that you control. And this one has pretty poor numbers in blue-green, minus 2.7. But it does have pretty solid numbers in Golgari, plus 0.5, and in Demir at minus 0.2. Again, I think that for this card, you need to also look at the multicolor decks because that's what it was made for. And I'm pretty sure that people will be putting this card strictly to ramp rather than to utilize the ability efficiency. And that may be the problem that it has. So when it comes to white, what do we have here? Well, first of all, two outstanding white commons, Banishing Light and Night Luminary. Slight difference between them. Banishing Light is just good in every white shell. It has plus 2 percentage point increase in every white color combination. Night Luminary, particularly good in white-black and white-red, and slightly less impressive in white-blue and white-green. These are two best white commons, and to be fair, if you look beyond it, there's not much spectacular going on in there. There is Focus Fire, which is absolutely solid everywhere. Particularly good home for it is white-green, plus 1.8. Given that white-green is a solid archetype, that's a good sign of it. But then the fourth best white common in my ranking, Radiant Strike. That one has basically a 0 increase in white-blue and white-red, and actually minus numbers in white-black and white-green. So not as impressive after all that. Then the next cards, Auxiliary Boosters, the equipment that gives flying and makes it to robot when it enters. That one is already pretty bad in white-blue. And, I can repeat my joke about not easy to double spell with the 5-drop, but I think it does play a bit of that. I don't think that white-blue in this format is disguised deck because there's not so much flying, to be fair. And Auxiliary Boosters, suffers for that because there's not much more aerial support. It's fine in white-red and white-green at minus 0.3. So worth noting that this is a perfectly serviceable common in those colors because it can do those last points of damage. And then we have the Flight Coordinator. This card at around minus 2 everywhere, apart from white-red, where it's minus 0.7. But the same caveat that we mentioned about the white-red applies here. It has the lowest win rate as a baseline. It's easier to improve from the lower baseline. I only decided to highlight some of the cards that have above minus 1, at least in one color combination. So we have Bright Spear Zealot. This one has really bad in white-green and white-black. Pretty medium in white-blue, where it technically should be because it's the 2/4 vigilance that has +2/+0 when you cast 2 or more spells this turn. And even with that, it's really not even good in white-blue. However, in white-red, it has minus 0.1. So maybe that's what white-red wants to be doing, attacking with slightly more resilient aggro threats. And the last thing, Zealous Display. Atrocious numbers in almost every color combination, but it does have minus 0.9 in white-blue. And I think that the function of how good Zealous Display is in those white-blue decks will be the function of how many of the 1/1 drones can you produce, because they can slam for a lot if you give them +2/+0. The Zealous Display is the trumpet blast of the format, with gives +2/+0 to your creatures. And yeah, this is the end of White's commons. And really, we are talking about 4 of them that are fine in every deck almost. 3 really universally fine: Banishing Light, Night Luminary, and Focus Fire. And the rest is sort of replaceable. Like all those 2 drops are just like take them or leave them, really. On the uncommon level, on the other hand, White does have some absolute gems. And it all starts with the All Fate Stalker. This card has 4 percentage points on average. So this is like approaching this bomb level, as I would recognize. 4 percentage point increase in the win rate when it's drawn. That's a massive improvement on the deck. And the Stalker is equally good in every color combination, really. Slightly better in white-green. You could speculate that maybe having some spells that can protect it from dying in that particular color is good, and maybe, I don't know, are there any good blink targets in white green? Maybe there are a couple of the blink tricks with other warp creatures in that particular color combination. Okay, and the second one is Starfield Shepherd. There we have it. That's already a combo of 2 cards. You can, on turn 4, you can warp Starfield Sheffield, get a plains or a 1-drop, and then blink it and get it again and get the Starfield Shepherd permanently while All Fate Stalker is waiting for its prey in your exile zone. Starfield Shepherd, solid. 5 mana for a 3/2 is not flyer is not great, but I said there's not so much that can interact with the flyers in this format. And the fact that you're getting a card and then maybe even as 2 cards, and then early, if you're short on lands, it can help you getting those lands. All that is just absolutely amazing. And it has great numbers. White, green, white, red, it's around 4%, and white, blue, and white, black around 2.53. So yeah, absolutely solid card in all aspects. And the third of the all-star uncommons is Rayblade Trooper, the 3-mana 2/2 that when it enters, you put a counter on something, and then when a non-token creature you control with the +1/+1 counter dies, you create a 1/1 human soldier. And it also has a warp for 2 mana. And this one, particularly good white, black, and white, red, but also very good in white, blue, and white, green. 2.5 in white, blue, and white, green, around 3.5 in white, black, and white, red. So solid all the way through. Just great. Every white deck wants a copy. Don't hesitate picking it. Okay, and then the fourth one that is slightly behind the top 3, Sunstar Expansionist. That's the 2-drop 2/3. When it enters, if opponent controls more lands, you can make a lander. And then it has landfall +1/+0 until end of turn. So on curve, it can be making a good impression of a 2-mana 3/3. And off curve, it will generate you some value while still being a 3/3 and potentially even a 4/3 if you sacrifice that lander. Also, like a rare way of making landers for yourself in the white deck. And yeah, its best home is white-red, with the white-red caveat, of course, but it's above 0 in every color combination. So it's 2.6 in white-red, around 1.5 in white-black, 1% in white-green, and 0.5% in white-blue. Still, you want to be playing it everywhere. And then we go to more situational cards. Dual Sun Adepts, that's the 3-mana 2/2 double striker that for 5 can pump up your team. This one is really good in white, blue, white, black, white, red, and just fine in white, green at around 0, and it's around 1.5 in all the other ones. So this one has one potentially weaker home in Selesnya, possibly because I think that we can focus all we want on the 2/2 double striker, but just looking at those numbers, potentially the more interesting ability it has is this team pump. And since white green wants to be playing more chunky creatures, maybe like 4/4/5/5s, that +1/+1 is not as a significant boost than pumping up 4 1/1s and giving them all +1/+1. And the next one is Honored Knight Captain. This is the 2-mana 1/1. When it enters, you make another 1/1, and for 6 you can sacrifice it and search your library for equipment and put it in the battlefield, which probably is going to be the auxiliary boosters as it is. Funnily enough, there is no correlation between what is good, where Honored Knight Captain is good, and where auxiliary boosters are good. So I don't think it's such a key interaction. But white-black wants it specifically. It's got plus 1.4 there, so solid, and white-red plus 1 with the Boros caveat. While white-blue and white-green have it around 0, which means still serviceable, and you probably want to play it, but you're not like thrilled to play it. You're just like, I'm content to play it more than being thrilled. Then we have Pulsar Squadron Ace, 2 mana for a 1/2, and you look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you either pick a spacecraft or put a counter on it, so it becomes a 2/3. And this card is just perfectly serviceable around 0 in every single color combination, which is fine. Sunstar Lightsmith. This one is the one whenever you cast your second spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. This one is true to its Azorius allegiance and has plus 0.8 in Azorius, 0.3 in Selesnya, which is still absolutely fine, and then a slight minus, but like minus 0.5, -1 in the other two. So still perfectly serviceable, playable in the other two. Honor, the white for a cantrip that puts a counter on target creature at sorcery speed. This one, white-green, has it at 0, so counter synergies, I guess, plus making your threat slightly more relevant. And then it's minus 0.7 in white-blue because it's a cheap cantrip that allows you to double spell while also fueling your hand. It's absolutely fine there. But in white-red, it's -2. So it's not like a universally good card. -2 is already like below what I want to be playing, especially in white-red that doesn't have a high win rate generically. A card that has okay-ish stat in Boros is the Wedgelight Rammer. That's the 4 mana 3/4 flying first strike spacecraft that makes a robot when it enters. I think that putting multiple bodies on board, allowing to tap your creatures for those tap out synergies, that's something that Boros wants to be moderately doing. I still don't know what Boros is best at, and I'm going to be really waiting for the deck data from 17Lands, because I'm still not sure. Should it be like break hell kind of aggressive deck that wants to be on board from turn 1 and just like curve out 1, 2, 3 and hope for the best? Should it be this midterm deck that uses the signpost and maybe makes some kind of a engine to generate creatures and then all of a sudden goes so wide that it can finish the game? Or should it be big Boros with controlling kind of deck where you're playing defense in the first turn and then take over the game? I think all combinations of Boros could be possible, and I think figuring out how to work Boros well is going to be potentially quite useful for the later part of the format. I am really hopeful that the 4, after his success in the Arena Championship, now will move properly to play Limited and figure out how to use Boros, because I think that there is something in there. And just more work needs to be done in order to figure it out. But Wedgelight Rammer can go in Boros. Also is possible in Selesnya decks. It's not a completely unplayable card. And in Selesnya, probably because you will play those chunkers that can just crew it very quickly while being aggressive enough so that you don't care that you tap out the blocker. And a couple of niche cards. Seam Rip, that's the portable whole enchantment version. That one is fine in Azorius, probably easy double spell with it. And Emergency Eject, that's the 3 mana destroy target non-permanent, its controller creates a lander, is fine in Boros. Why I selected this card is also that normally those kind of white removal spells, I kill your thing, but you get a 1/1. I kill your thing, but you get a whatever. Normally they are not so great, but this one is actually the most passable version of it that I've seen. The lander is much less significant than an 1/1 or even an 0/1. And because of that, I think you don't want to actively be putting it in your deck. And, it has like -3 in Azorius and Orzhov and -1 in Selesnya and 0 in Boros. But at least in Boros and Selesnya, it's sort of passable. If Selesnya is aggressive, they might even not have time to crack that lander because they have to play threat after threat, deal with the threat after threat, and removing their key blocker might be worth it. So I'm not saying that you should be looking for that card, but if you get it past late, I don't think it's absolutely atrocious to play that card. Okay, and there's a bunch of those uncommons that are really bad, like Don't Strike Vanguard, Reroute Systems, Scout for Survivors, Dual Sun Technique. All of those have like really bad -4 kind of numbers. But in terms of, there's definitely one thing that White does have, and it's bombs. And here you see the most atrocious one: Cosmogrant Zenith and Lumen Class Frigate. Cosmogrant Zenith, okay, still not enough numbers in Boros to get this, but I'm sure it's pretty high. But in Azorius, it's like 10 percentage points increase in win rate. This is silly. This is absolutely silly, and this is a true definition of a bomb. And we know that Cosmogrant Zenith is strong. It looks strong. And everyone from the previous season already knew is going to be amazing and constructive, playable, and whatnot. Lumen Cross Frigate, bigger surprise maybe. This one has roughly 7 percentage point improvement, slightly less than White-Black, where it's 2.6, but which indicates that White-Black wants to be playing small board and the other decks want to be playing wide board. But still, it's quite impressive in either way. But those two are great, but all the other White rares are really, really strong. And you will see other colors. It's not the same story. It's not that all rares are strong. What is this person talking? Don't be silly. I mean, we know that. No. White has particularly strong rares across board, a number of them. And there's a lot. Sunstar Chaplain, another one with around 4% average improvement in each color pair. And that's the 2-mana 3/2. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Weirdly enough, worst home for it, according to the data, is Boros, where it was designed for, probably. Oh, well, I guess that's where we live right now. And then there's the Seriema, the legendary spacecraft. For 3 mana, it's a 5/5. Tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible when it's a creature. And when it enters, you can search up for a legend. And it's got amazing numbers in White-Black, White-Red, and White-Green, and -2% in White-Blue. And my obvious guess is that White-Blue is the only signpost uncommon in White that is not legendary. That would be my guess. Also, Blue Legend is pretty poor, the Mnemon. So there is not really good targets that you can find with this Seriema in this color combination, unless you get like Halia, which we'll talk in a second. This is the really one good target for it. However, in all the other colors, you can get your Servondums and the other Halia and Sami or something, and maybe Tanuk, and it's going to be absolutely fine. But in White-Blue, just no legendary targets, which means that Seriema needs those legendary targets. And this card would have been so busted in Final Fantasy when I think about it, with all the legends lying around. You would basically have a 3-mana tutor for a creature that turns into a 5/5 flyers that gives the creature you tutor indestructible. So would have been probably too good in that particular format. In this format, they balanced it by not putting too many legends, and it didn't work. It's still quite good, 6% improvement. Then we have the Halia, Guided by Light. That's the 3-mana 3/3 Soul Warden-ish. So whenever it or another creature you control enters, you gain a life. And at the end step, if you gained 3 or more life this turn, you will draw a card. And it's, lots of cards that can enable it, because lots of cards that put multiple bodies on board. There are, just stupid thing like play Halia and Sami's Retribution, Sami's something. the thing that makes a lander and gain 2 life. Well, there you go. You just gain 3 life in this turn, and you will draw a card. Small things like that. And Halia is good in every white color combination, around +4. So we're talking, it's the card that is on the level of All Fate Stalker, Starfield Shepherd kind of level. So top uncommon plus. Then the card that I didn't like, but the numbers prove me wrong. Lightstall Inquisitor, the 1-drop 2/1 with vigilance, and when it enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand and may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. But the spells cost 1 more and lands under tap if that happened. I possibly didn't like the card because my opponent played it on turn 1 so many times, and I just like, oh, well, I guess that the land I'm not going to do anything with on turn 1 is going to enter tapped, and that was it. But on the draw, which I never encountered because obviously my opponents are always on the play, on the draw, it's actually much better if you can stop them from casting their 2-drop or disturbing their mana drop somewhere further along the line, while providing a good enough early pressure. And it has around 2% in blue, white, black, and white, green, and plus 5% in white, red, pointing me to the idea that white, black in the end wants to be the most aggressive version of itself. And then we have cards that are not as universally great. Starting with Exalted Sunborn. I know that if you play Commander, you probably can't believe that this card is not absolutely busted also in Limited, but in fact only has good numbers in white-green. Great numbers in white-green, 6 percentage points. In white-black, it's +1. In white-blue, it's -1. So the problem with this card is that the middle text is a sort of throwaway, which means the warp is a sort of throwaway. It mostly is what it is, just a 4/5 flying lifelinker. It's a stat monster, and that's how it should be treated. And that particular stat monster approach is particularly good in white-green, it seems. Then we have Beyond the Quiet, the Wrath, that exiles all creatures in spacecraft. Great in white-blue and white-green. I assume there are 2 builds of white-blue, one this sort of more aggressive and one more controlling, and Beyond the Quiet is going to be great in the more controlling version of it. I've seen a couple of decks floating around that looked very controlling in white-blue and were also successful. You have so much card advantage in blue. You have so much good removal around, Banishing Lights, stuff like that, and you can play this long game. And Beyond the Quiet is a perfect insurance policy for 3-for-1ing your opponent. But in white, black, and white, red, just about average 0, 0.5, that kind of numbers. But in Azorius and white, green, +4. And I would like to stress, in white, blue, white, green decks that actually want to be playing Beyond the Quiet, which I think that there is a lot of pre-selection there. And the last card, Asteli Reclaimer. Again, not much to see here. 5 mana, 5/4 flyer. That's the most that it gets. It gets around 1% in white, black, and white, green. And it has +2% in white, blue, and white, red. I can only wonder if that, but like white, red, probably the difference is because white, red is generally weaker. So putting something very strong will have a bigger effect. White, blue, I wonder what fraction of it is that you have both Cryo Shatter and Cryogenic Relic that will find their way into graveyard, and Asteli Reclaimer will allow to reanimate them, or even reanimate them twice. And then Hardlight Containment is just bad, so we don't want to talk about it. So let's move to the blue. And well, first thing, Cryogen Relic is absolutely ruling supreme in terms of the win rate, +3% across the board. That's the level of really, really good uncommon. Start playing it, because I still see them go very late. And by very late, I mean like 5th pick. Why do I see them 5th pick? That card should be gone by then. I would have picked it. It's phenomenal, and that's the end of the story. But that's the end. That's it in terms of blue commons, unfortunately. The rest of them are situational or meh. Selfcraft Mechan is the second best blue common. And guess what? I'm sure that part of it is piggyback riding on a Cryogen relic, and still piggyback riding on the Cryogen relic because piggyback Cryogen relic is available. Best homes, blue, black, and blue, red. At around 1. It's sort of neutral in blue, green, but it's minus 1.3 in Azorius. So probably you want to be more careful about putting it in your Azorius decks. Then we have Divert Disaster. And that one has really good numbers in blue-green. And this, by the way, I made a memory note to myself that when the replay data comes out, I want to see what is the win rate of Divert Disaster in hand when it was, depending on the turn it was cast on. When is the optimal turn to cast Divert Disaster? It's an interesting question, especially in blue-green decks where it seems to be the best. Because I don't know, is it good because it can counter opponent's 6-drop? Is it good because it allows you to defend against 2-drops and you can just have a clean mana curve with your 3rd drop being the first thing that hits the board or something? I'm not sure. It has plus 0.5 in blue-black and then slight minus, around -1 in the other two. So yeah, this is a card that has a sort of bimodal option. You probably want to be putting it more in blue-green and blue-black than the other one. Lost in Space, on the other hand, the put on top of the library 4-mana instant of this particular format. This one is practically a 0 in every color combination, which is great. This is the card you want in your deck. You want to have even 2 copies. Absolutely fine to have a card that has 0, especially if you can get as late as Lost in Space is going. Then we have Ilvoid Jammer, which is really bad in blue-black. Blue-black does not need to protect its creatures. Blue-black needs to be defending its life total. And yeah, that's it. Once it takes over the game, kill or you want their creatures, they already have the momentum and they will never let you go because card advantage they have is supreme to yours. In blue-red, it actually has positive 1%, which is absolutely solid. And it's around 0 in the other two. So it's not like terrible, nothing bad, nothing wrong with it. And you can play a copy in your decks as a combat trick that has some later utility. And in my stats, it came out on top of Cryo Shatter, which was a bit surprising for me. Nothing wrong with the Cryo Shatter. It has 0s across board, apart from blue-green where it's minus 1.2. I'm going to watch those numbers for Cryo Shatter as the format evolves because in my head, it's a better card than this. It's a better card than the, 6th best blue common, according to this metrics. I would put it probably as the 3rd best. And I wonder, differences between the 3rd and the 6th are small, but still, Cryo Shatter is lower in that ranking. So I wonder why it's that. And then we have a couple of cards that are specific. Mechanozoa, best home, Izzet. Ilvoid Galeblade, the 1-drop, best home. Would you believe it, Azorius, but pretty bad in all the other one. Ilvoid Operative, the 2-mana 2-1 that grows when you cast your 2nd spell. This one has similar profile to Galeblade, just best in Azorius and not so good in any other color combination. Nanoform Sentinel passes my generous bar of being win rate higher than minus 0.1 in Izzet specifically. So the artifact synergies there. Then we have Mental Modulation, terrible, but okay in Azorius. Okay, sort of like barely scraping through. And then you have things like Mechan Shieldmate, Cloud Spirit Technician, Sinister Cryologist, atrocious. Sinister Cryologist in Dimir decks, minus 12.8. Drawing it decreases your chance of winning by 12.8 percentage points. And I think that this is not a real number. The minus 12.8 comes from the fact that you have to be a maybe more beginner player to put it in your deck in the first place. And because of that, you will have on average a lower win rate, and that contributes that. The reverse piggyback riding. Piggyback, downing, I don't know. In terms of uncommons in blue, well, Codecracker Hound just head and shoulders above anything else, around 3% average improvement. Yeah, Sipsic Appraiser with an upside. Who knew it's going to be good? Everyone, and it is confirmed that it is good. Mouth of the Storm, also very good numbers. Azorius, one archetype where it doesn't work so well, 0.2, which is still possible, more than possible. This is still something that you actively want to put in your deck. It's just better in every other blue deck because it's got like around 1.5 to 3 kind of improvement in the other color combinations. It's still a scary, scary card to see on the other side of the battlefield. Then Tractor Beam, which is solid everywhere, +1 to +2 kind of improvement. Turns out that stealing the creature that you tap is flipping the script on the normal version of those effects, where opponent was still getting benefit from all the triggered effects that something was bringing. Yesterday, I combined the Tractor Beam with the Nanoform Sentinel, and I just got myself a sort of build your own control magic. That was fun. Yeah, very good card. And then the Sculpting Blast, similar numbers to Tractor Beams, around 1 to 2 percentage points improvement. The bounce spell, that if you bounce in the right timing, you get a drone. Then there are 2 cards that are technically should be Azorius, but are actually good almost everywhere, not so much in Simic, but apart from Simic, they're good everywhere else. Uthros Psionist and Gigastorm Titan, the 3-mana 2/4 that generate you a Soul Ring if you cast a second spell each turn. And then Gigastorm Titan, the 5-drop that you can cast for 2 if it's a second spell, and it's a 4/4, so that can be pretty big. You would think that this is like Azorius or bust, but actually it's doing well in Dimir, it's doing well in Izzet, not so well in Simic, but well, that's fine, I guess. And then we have 2 spaceships, and both of them are perfectly serviceable in blue. Uthros Scanship, around 0 and +1% in Azorius, which means that Azorius actively wants it, probably because, like drawing 2 cards, getting rid of a land that you don't need anyway, is a sort of a good way of enabling the double spelling at some stage of the turn. And Specimen Frighter, this one is really bad in Azorius. The 6 mana again shows me, like, card after card, we see that everything that has a high mana value is just not going so well in Azorius. That those 2 spell synergies are quite important for that deck. That being able to play cheap stuff is quite useful. Couple of leftovers: Mechan Navigator, Azorius, and Izzet. It's fine. Cerebral Download, Dimir can play it if it really has to, but you probably prefer to have different card draw spells in that color combination. Unravel, of note, absolutely horrendous stats in blue-red. That's the cancel variant of the set, but actually has good numbers in Azorius. Maybe the Azorius can also play a tempo game where it goes 1-drop, 2-drop, double spell on turn 3, and from then on you hold up Unravel and Lost in Space and do your worst opponent. I can counter something if it's annoying. I can bounce it on top of your library if you cast a creature and so on. And then Ilvoy Infiltrator, the 1/3 Ophidian. I'm not using Scroll Thief. I'm not a young person. The Ophidian variant of the set can't be blocked if you've cast 2 or more spells this turn. And guess what? It has okay numbers in Azorius, minus 0.3. Turns out that the double spelling in a double spelling deck that draws you cards is okay. A couple of other odds and sods. Scour for Scrap. That one has really solid numbers in Dimir. And I assume it won't be every Dimir deck, but probably a Dimir deck with 3 Cryogen Relics or something like that. But plus 0.8 is quite manageable. I had good results with it yesterday in Izzet, but my Izzet was also optimized for having this artifacts in the graveyard. And because of that, the card was always draw a very strong artifact from your library, plus return a strong artifact from your graveyard. And Mechan Assembler, that's the 5 mana 4/4, and whenever another artifact you control enters, you create a 2/2, but it only triggers once each turn. This card is neutral in Izzet, but shouldn't be played anywhere else. Stop putting it in other decks than Izzet. You just won't have a density of artifacts. And rest sort of bad. Annul, -5, -6 across board. Yeah, think about it. Remember the white, how everything was dark red? Let's go back to it to relive that beautiful moment. This is how red rares looked like. Everything was red. It doesn't look so red in someone would be very confusing. Red refers to the coloring of the percentage points based on their number in my tables, not to the color of Magic. Quantum Riddler. Okay, maybe all the blue rares are not as strong as the white ones, but Quantum Riddler certainly is. Improvement of roughly 9 to 12 percentage points, depending on the deck. Just sickening how good this card is. So yeah, don't hesitate to pick it. It's a bona fide bomb. Second card is my personal nemesis. The card that basically, I don't know. I didn't play that much. I played 9 drafts in this format. How many times did I see my opponent go island this? And it's hard to beat when they drop it on turn 1 and then they follow it up with like a Cryogen Relic. Yeah, they always have it on turn 1. They never didn't have it. But Synthesizer Lapship is really solid, especially in Azorius and Izzet. Still okay, but not as good in blue-black and blue-green. Okay, and I'm sure that the opening hand win rate is much better. Then we have the second mythic, Weft Walking. Improvement of around 3 percentage points in all the archetypes, except for Izzet, where it's only 1 percentage point. But still solid across board. Weft Walking is not a meme card, it's a real card. The fact that you draw 7, basically, and they don't, offsets the fact that they have the access to Omniscience first. And then we have like lesser rares. Starwinder is just fine in most decks. Not as much in blue-black, because blue-black is not assertive enough, so you just will play it and not even be able to attack. It needs to be bringing some instant value. You need to have some flyers or something. Blue-red seems to be dealing best with it. Consult the star chart is serviceable. Best home is Dimir. Dimir is the one that wants to draw the cards the most. Emissary Escort, also serviceable, but best. Weirdly, best numbers of it are in blue-green, not in blue-red. And I guess it has something to do with blue-green playing like Pinnacle Kill Ships that make it huge 7/4 at some stage of the game, while the 0/4 Buddy lets you survive early game pressures. It's still fine in blue-red and less fine in the other two. And then Starfield Vocalist and Menon both have relatively poor numbers. Why Vocalist is so bad? I think that just the ETBs are sort of small ball in the set. Most of the time it won't get anything good. And also, like, it's hard to reap the reward in the same turn, even if you warp it from the best things. So very often it will have to be a 4 mana do nothing, and those things tend to die. And also, like, that it randomly dies to depressurize probably contributes to that. Same with the Menon, also randomly dies to depressurize. But Quantum Riddler doesn't. So moving on to black, top common, and you see these are some paltry pickings for the black cards. Top common is Virus Beetle, but it only has around 1.5 percentage point improvement, even minus 0.7 in case of black green. There is no black commons that are just universally bangers like Cryogen Relic was, or even like the Banishing Light and the Night were in white. However, Virus Beetle and Perigi Beckoner are just solid as black commons. Both of them fulfilling their respective niches. Beckoner being slightly worse than blue-black. Again, blue-black playing more reactive than assertive game plan. Beckoner is, I think, much better with an assertive game plan. Virus Beetle not being so great in black-green. I have no idea. Maybe there's just not enough synergies with it to go along. Virus Beetle great in Demir, potentially because, like speed bump creature that will sometimes actually stop stuff from attacking. And at the same time, getting a card from your opponents in a deck that is all about stabilizing is a great way, because of course with one card fewer you increase your chance of stabilizing the game even if you cast it quite early. Then we have Depressurize, which is roughly on 0 everywhere. Absolutely fine card. You just put it in every black deck and move on with it. Same with the Graph-Pack Monoist, the 2/1 flyer that dies into a robot. Better in white, black, and blue, black. In white, black, offensively, and blue, black, defensively, you block, and then you block something else with the 2/2 happy times. Also solid in black, red. It's just very bad in black, green, which I honestly don't know what black, green is even doing. But it's not doing Graph-Pack Monoist, let's put it like that. So that's potentially like a better card than it seems, because it's only bad in black-green, which is not that great of a deck. Moving on, we have the Graph Kill. It's just fine. White-black, it is 1.3. Rest is around between minus 0.5 and plus 0.5. Solid, again, as with the Depressurize, roughly. And then Hulk Carver, again, good in all the decks apart from black-green, at around -1 to 0 kind of level. It's -2 in black-green, the 1/1 Death Toucher. Just perfect in Demir again, just the one drop that will trade with something is good. Or eat removal, fine. You're quite happy if opponent points a removal at your 1/1 Death Toucher. But it's definitely good in holding the fort. Then we have the Embrace Oblivion, which is around -1 to 0, sort of similar to Hull Carver. It's a 0 in black-red and -2 in black-green. It's like black-green is definitely... What this data shows us is that black-green doesn't want to have black in it. It probably wants to have green mainly. Okay. And there's the Beam Soap Prospector, which is fine in blue-black and black-red. And blue-black, because it will let you ramp, which will probably increase the chances of you stabilizing, because you can neutralize their board advantage by playing something big. And in black-red, because it's like a good sacrifice fodder that gives you multiple sacrifice triggers. And that's the end of the black commons, because the rest, Comet Trawler, Decode Transmissions, Dark Endurance, Swarm Color, all of them have pretty bad numbers. And I seen someone talking about Swarm Color in the chat. Yes, and there are decks that are good homes for a Swarm Color. Some black-red decks will probably want a couple of copies. Some build-arounds, like very bad build-arounds, like with the weapon manufacturing, want probably multiple copies. But the problem with it is that body is relatively poor. It's 4 mana. For 4 mana, I had better things to do in this format than casting Swarm Color. Uncommons in black. Now here we have some bangers. Dubious Delicacy and Fell Grafship are head-to-head best. And, like, both of them have over 5% improvement in white-black, which is just insane, especially with that it's a good color combination. And still around 3-4 in other combinations, which is really brilliant. Both of those cards just slam them in draft and then move on with your life. They're great, both of them. Fell Grafship probably sort of rises like the best spacecraft in the format, really. Maybe together with the Larval Scout Finder, the green one that harrows when it enters. And the lifelink on it is just such a big game. There's so much playing around. Then not much to say about those two. Monoist Circuit Feeder, the 6-drop 4/4. That one is great in black-red and black-green. slightly worse in blue-black, and only 1% improvement in white-black. But in black-red and black-green, +4 improvement, which is a lot. Fuller's Faithful, sort of reverse trend. It's much better in white-black and blue-black, and then less good in black-red and black-green. Still good in all of those colors, like +2.5 in the first two and +1.5 in the other two. Great card. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I definitely had success with it in blue-black decks. Then we have Umbral Color Zealot. Now, this one is much better in decks that are actually proactive. And white-black and black-red seem like the two that want to be. Plus, in black-red, it gives you the synergy kind of angle where sacrifice outlet can be much more important. And Tragic Trajectory, better numbers than any of the common removals. So better than Depressurized, better than Graph Pact. Around 1.5 in white, black, blue, black, and around 0 in the other colors. Vote Out, another removal, the 4-mana Convoke one. That one is great in white, black, which points us to the fact that white, black wants to be aggressive, and going wide and killing big things is crucial for it because it can be blanked by like a 4/4. At 0 in black-red. So here again we have the same kind of trend as in the Umbral Zealot, where it's best in white-black and black-red. And then pretty poor in blue-black because that's just a sorcery speed 4-mana removal a lot of time at -1.5, and black-green -1. Then Timeline Color, specifically white-black card, 0.6 there, and -0.5, -0.1 in blue-black and black-red. Mind you, most blue-black decks won't even put it in the deck, so there must be some specific sub-build of blue-black decks for it to be good. That would need to be investigated. And pretty bad in black-green. Because, graveyard synergies don't exist, and even if this can be cast from your graveyard, how do you get it there in blue-black? Then we have 2 Caesarian cards. Caesarian Voidborn, the 3-mana 2/2 sort of Zulaport Cutthroat. Well, guess what? It's good in white-black, +0.3, and pretty bad everywhere else. And then Caesarian Dirgecraft, the 5-mana 4/3 flying spacecraft, when it enters, it edicts the opponent. It's fine in white-black and blue-black, and pretty bad in black-red for some reason at -4. Oh, and last card that actually managed to cross this -1 threshold in at least one archetype is Blade of the Swarm. Horrendous everywhere else, but somehow at -0.6 in black-red. Potentially because that's the kind of a deck that wants a 5/3 creature, because it can remove the blockers and the 5/3 will go all the way or something. But yeah, 4-mana 5/3, not particularly good. Sometimes you will do something fancy with Warp, but yeah, usually it is very underwhelming, as the chat mentions. And then a bunch of the spells that are bad. One particular surprise for me is the Hymn of the Faller. I had good results with that card, but it has -4 across board. I don't know exactly why. It's just disappointing. I'm actually honestly surprised about seeing those numbers when I saw them earlier. In terms of the black bombs, well, Energy Acolyte is on the Riddler kind of level, +12, +8, depending on the color combination, but great everywhere. It's just like, play that card. It's fantastic. The other bomb in black, and did I say that, or did I just write it in a tweet? Sunset Saboteur, I said it last week, but I continue thinking that it's amazing that they made a bomb card that has a downside, and I hope that the design team will put more of those kind of cards into Magic. I think that having like something that has a downside and still becomes a bomb in Limited, because the upside is also great. I want to see more of those kind of cards. Sunset Saboteur, 2-mana 4/1 menace, word discard card, but whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and opponent controls. Neat interaction is that if opponent has a creature with a ward, you can just put it on the ward creature and not pay the ward, which might be a fun thing in Constructed when two decks are playing Sunset Saboteur and they just like pass each other like trains in the night because you just failed to discard a card. And then it's not as great. It's not as deep. Like now you can appreciate the power of the white bombs really when you saw that table earlier. Because we have Archenemy's Charm, which is great. 2% improvement in blue, black, black, red, and black, green, but minus 0.9 in white, black, which makes me think that white, black wants to be more white than black. And that's why you probably can't play Archenemy Charm efficiently in it. That's my guess. Because if you play too much black, then the deck is not good or something. And then we have 0 point Ballad, around 2% in blue, black, and black, green, the allegedly more controlling decks, and less improvement in white, black, and especially in black, red, it's minus 0.7. Shu Effete Osteoharmonist. That's the 3-drop that is a 2/3, and you can tap it to return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a skeleton in addition to its other types, and has no abilities, activate only as a sorcery. By the way, cool combo. Get yourself the 1-mana 4/1 defender. It loses defender when it comes back with Chewy Feet and can attack for 4 every turn. Yay. Yeah, card around average. It's like 0 in every deck and minus 1.9 in black red for some reason. But again, here we're talking about small sample sizes probably. Then Requiem Monolith, just very bad in blue black. Blue black wants to draw cards but doesn't want to pay life, and the paying life part outweighs it. Also, it doesn't want to play to the board too much, especially in the early game. But in the other decks, it's absolutely fine. Black red 1.1, that's the particularly interesting one. Then Sothera, the Super Void, and it's not so super. -3 in white black, -3 in blue black, which is actually not surprising as it doesn't want to play into the board too much, and minus 0.7 in black red. We don't have data for the Golgari, but it's not like a bomb that you would think. Still made the list because it's minus 0.7 in black red, but I have to say that's a good moment for me because I was mocked for not picking Sothera pack 1 pick 1 in the pro teams Discord, and now I feel vindicated I didn't pick it, as the numbers show that it's not that great. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure that if you build your deck right, it can be great in that deck, but it's fragile to multiple things. So I had it beat me, but I also had it do nothing. And I don't even know how many times opponent had it in their hand and couldn't play it because of something. So remember, we never know that 17Lands does. All right, red. And we start with the best red common, Orbital Plunge. Who could have said that this is going to be the best red common before the format? I don't think many people did. But it has great numbers everywhere. It's just like Graph Pack that makes you a lander most of the time. Not so many things that really require all 6 of the damage. And yeah, looks absolutely solid. Then you have Nebula Dragon, even a bigger surprise probably. This one particularly good numbers in white red as a probably top end finisher for that deck. But solid in Gruul, solid in blue red, and black red is at minus 1.5, so not as good. Then Cav Landseeker. I think I need to up my pick order on this card. It's around 0.5, 1% to the good in every red archetype. Now keep in mind that red has 2 relatively bad archetypes in white red and blue red, and these are of course easier to improve. But Cav Landseeker has plus numbers also in the good red archetypes. And in black red, that extra spare lander can be used for many other things apart from sacrificing it for a land. And I think that last of the big 4 of the red commons is the Zookeeper Mechan, the mana dork. Great in white red, blue red, and black red. Average in Gruul at minus 0.2, but 1% improvement in the other 3. Which is absolutely solid. And just knocking on the door of that top 3 is Melded Moxide, which is great in Izzet and Rakdos, and probably should be considered a card for those two. And then it's on par, if not better, than the other commons from the top 4, because it has like 1.3, 1.1 in those, and slightly weaker in Boros, where it's 0.5, and Gruul when it's minus 1.3. But that's the end. That's the 5 really solid red commons. The rest are not as solid. Plasma Bolt, 0.4 in Izzet, but something like around minus 0.5, minus 1 in the rest of them. Bombard, I think that people are in love with that card, and the numbers are not that impressive. It's minus 0.7 in Boros, but below minus 1 in all the other combinations, like minus 1.1, minus 1.5 in that range. Slag Drill Scrapper, minus 0.5 in blue-red, but not impressive anywhere else. Oreplate Pangolin, public service announcement. Please do not put it into your decks that are not Izzet. Minus 2.5, minus 3.5 in every archetype, apart from Izzet, where it's actually plus 0.4. So it's a good card in Izzet, bad everywhere else. And this probably linked to the fact that Boros is a bad color combination with low win rate, but Rig of War in Boros has minus 0.7. So you might consider putting it there as a combat trick. And one thing I want to mention, like Frontline War Rager and Red Tiger Mechan, I see them being played against me all the time. Minus 5 to minus 11 for Frontline War Rager, depending on the archetype, and minus 4 to minus 10 for the Red Tiger Mechan. As someone wrote in chat, more like a Red Tiger meh hand can, with the MEH meh. That was very cunning, but works better in reading than in saying. In terms of uncommons, it's not as deep as some other colors. We don't see the same. Like, remember how black uncommons looked like? Pretty good. The red uncommons, we have Terrapact Intimidator, which is banging at between 4 and 5 percentage point improvement. But then the second one, Cavaron Harrier, the 1 mana 2/1 artifact creature, that has, like plus 1.5 in black, red, green, roughly similar levels, 1% to 1.5% in the other ones, but it's not as impressive anymore. And then the third one, Cut Propulsion, is great in Boros, which has the Boros tax, and then around 0 in all the other ones. And the same for Invasive Maneuvers, around 0 in everything, and maybe slightly like 0.5 in black-red. So we quickly drop off those red uncommons into the sort of realm of mediocrity or realm of specialization, because red uncommons have 2 of the most specialized cards in the format so far. And usually it's red that has the most specialized cards for at the uncommon slot for a reason of one of those cards function. Territorial Bruntar, that one is great in black, red, and red, green, but it's minus 2%, and Boros it's at around 0. And then we move to first specialized card, Molecular Modifier. That's the 3 mana 2/2 that gives first strike and +1/+0 to target creature you control until end of turn. This one is plus 2.6 in Boros, which puts it in the great uncommon range. And I think that this gives some credibility to that Rig of War okay numbers for Boros. Maybe Boros just wants to be playing creatures with lots of power, attacking with them, and using those first strike combat tricks as removal of sorts to push more damage. But the Molecular Modifier is pretty bad everywhere else apart from white-red at around -1, -1.5. And then we go to our second specialized uncommon, and that's Systems Override. That's the Threaten effect. Plus 2.3 in black-red, and I assume, again, sub-build of black-red that is tuned to be able to steal and sacrifice. But plus 0.2, 0.3 is great. So it does work, it seems, when you build it. But -5 in red green and not enough data in other format in other color combinations. And then we go to a third specialized card, albeit this one is not a specialized great card, it's just a specialized okay card. And Memorial Team Leader, 4 mana 4/3. On your turn, other creatures you control get +1/+0, and it has Warp for 2. That has 0 in Boros, but is deep in the minus for everything else. So yet another kind of signal that Boros wants to have a big attack, big power of its creatures, as shown by the modifier, the rig for war, and now Memorial Team Leader. A couple of last things. Voltguard Trooper weirdly has the best numbers in Izzet at -0.6, but it's pretty bad elsewhere. And Full Bore in Boros has just above -1. But again, Boros tax, so I wouldn't put too much stock into that finding. One card I wanted to mention, Litho Breaking, has -1 in Izzet, and I did find that card to be great. It's just, I think, conducive to what Izzet wants to be doing, and there's lots of creatures in Izzet that will have 3 toughness that are cheap, because you have the Zookeeper Mechan. Your Oreplate Pangolin might be 3 toughness. I played the Cavaron Turbo Drone in those decks, so yeah, it can be pretty strong. Litho Breaking in that deck to get rid of your opponent's early drops while keeping yours intact. Okay, in terms of bombs, actually red is doing pretty fine. It has 2 of the most impressive bombs in the format, in Nova Hellkite and Warmaker Gunship. Both of them around +7, +8 improvement. You can buff the Pangolin from the lender token that you generate with Litho Breaking. That's the whole trick. Yeah. So both of those cards are great in every red deck, and just put them in. That's fine. Possibility Technician, the Kavu that Impulse draws you cards when you warp it, or when another Kavu enters, and you can play those cards if you control a Kavu or something. That one is also good, just maybe like a tier below, but it's between 5 and 6 percentage point improvement. Not quite 7, 8, but still very impressive, like better than any uncommon would do. And then we go Rust Harvester, which is still okay in Boros and Rakdos at around 2.53 percentage improvement, but in Izzet it's +5, and in Gruul it's -1. So big delta there in Rust Harvester. Another red specialized card. This one specifically Izzet, but also very good in white, red, and black, red that want to be playing it, which means that they are slightly specialized. And then we move to the less universal ones. Pain for All, Gruul and Boros, probably best homes. And like Izzet probably, but pretty bad in black-red for some reason. In black-red it's -3, in Boros it's +2, and in Izzet and Gruul it's on par. And then Tanuk, because it's a mythic, it has a small sample sizes in some of the archetypes. It's at a 0 in black-red and -2 in Gruul, which actually surprised me a bit. I thought that Gruul Smash works, but not with Tanuk, it seems. And lastly, Devastating Onslaught, the X spell that makes X copy something, and you make X copies of it. There are a couple of cards that are really great with it, like Mechanozoa, for example, but a lot of the time it's just a win more card. So I don't know exactly. You can build it well. Red green has -0.5. I think blue red might have also similar kind of numbers. Red green will have big creatures that you can copy, which is good. But black red maybe not, and that maybe is the reason why Devastating Onslaught is not great in that particular color combination. And just worth mentioning, Weapons Manufacturing has terrible numbers, but it is a very powerful build around. It's the problem with build-arounds is that people build badly. And this one is particularly tricky one. There's a lot of things to consider in there. Some things need to be coming your way. But it's definitely fun to play it. So I would highly recommend. And some decks go really outrageous with it. All right, green. Then we have Galactic Wayfarer. That is the best common, and by quite a lot. It's great in every green deck, between 2 and 3 percentage points, which is great for a common. Just put it in your decks and you'll be fine. But then we have other 2 great commons in Biosynthetic Burst, which is great in every green archetype, between 0.5 and 2 percentage points. And this might be a card that still is flying under your radar. If it does, start playing it. It's a really solid card. Part of its power is probably because it's getting late. But, I don't have that big of an audience. If only you start drafting it slightly higher, it should still be available enough that you can get the benefits of its high win rate. And Gene Pollinator is the third one. Again, solid across board, maybe slightly worse in Golgari, which is a plus 0.5, but like between 1 and 1.5 in the other ones. And anyway, you don't want to be drafting Golgari at all, so who cares? Oh yeah, by the way, I didn't mention, but Biosynthetic Burst, worse than in Simic than in other color combinations. But in especially Selesnya and Gruul, it's a great card. And Diplomatic Relations, which is, again, good between 0.5 and 2, except for Gruul with its minus 0.5, which, it's still fine there, but not great. And I think maybe it does something to do with 2-drop quality in the format, where other decks maybe have slightly better ones. And because red has such good interaction, you want orbital plunges, not Diplomatic Relations. So maybe a couple of those things. Or maybe you just don't need to remove bigger things. You can just trade them off. Your actual problem is with small things. And then we get to the sort of like mediocre creatures. And yes, I didn't make one slide. But Ice Cave Crusher and Tallbringer, perfectly zero kind of cards. Crusher is between minus 0.5 and plus 0.5. Tallbringer is between minus 1.3 and plus 0.5. Tallbringer particularly weak numbers in Selesnya, which makes me think that Selesnya wants to lean on maybe slightly more 2-droppy kind of creatures, and maybe more into the counter synergies. I don't know. Then we have Germinating Worm, another hero of the first couple of days of the format that has fallen backwards ever since. Best numbers in blue, green, and black-green, the decks that are less proactive, more defensive, and can make a better use of gaining a life point or 2 here and there. Then the Blooming Stinker, 0 in Gruul, and then around -1, -2 in other color combinations. So in Gruul, it works. I think especially like putting I died like that yesterday. Opponent casting Blooming Stinger and giving Death Touch to their Trampler, and like, I thought I stabilized, but clearly not. And then we have the Fungal Colossus, best in decks that want to splash. So Golgari, Gruul, and Simic. Really bad in Selesnya, which wants to be Selesnya. And Drix Fatemaker, okay in Selesnya. It seems the counter things do work. In terms of uncommons, we have the God tier in Godmo. Glacier Godmo, great in every green deck, between 3 and 4.5 percentage points improvement. Same with Larval Scoutlander. This one starts at 1.5 in Gruul, but between 3 and 4.5 in other color combinations. That's the Harrow spacecraft. And the third great green uncommon is Melt Strider's Resolve, between 2 and 3.5 percentage points improvement. Best in Selesnya. You want big butts in there, turns out, and it can efficiently kill almost everything with your body sizes. Only 2% improvement in Golgari, which is still more than perfectly fine. Fourth great green uncommon, Harmonious Grove Strider, the 5 mana XX, where X is the number of land you control with some word. This one is around 2 percentage points everywhere, which is perfectly solid, great card. And slightly lower than that is Siege Ship Impact. And this is the card that you might still not know that you should be picking. Well, now you know. You should be picking Siege Ship Impact. I know that Alex talked about it in his podcast, Limited Level Ups. Data confirms what Alex was telling, as it usually does. This card is just good and main deckable and should be probably a one-off or even a two-off in most, if not all, green decks. Close Encounter, the removal spell. This has numbers that are comparable with the diplomatic relations, around between 0 and 1% improvement. Fine, great, good. Play it in every green deck. And then Siege Ship Agrarian. I mean, funny, who would have had that Siege Ship Impact is better than Siege Ship Agrarian before the format started? But here we are. Siege Ship Agrarian before minus 0.4 and 1.3. Better in Golgari and Gruul, but still good in every green deck, really. Just like there shouldn't be a green deck that doesn't want to play it. And then Edge Rover, the 1-drop 2/2 with reach. When it dies, everyone gets a lander. Between 0 and 1.1. Phenomenally solid numbers. I love cards like that. Just bang on average. Best home, Simic for some reason. And then cards that have almost identical stats, even though they're very different from each other, but both of them have landfall, so there's something that links them. And I assume that this is a sort of a lesson in seeing where land home feels most like at home. Oh, sorry. It's Edge Rover and Numidian Terrabotanist that have very similar numbers. Numidian Terrabotanist, best home, Simic, everything else worse. But in fact, EU Social Engineering, slightly less best in Simic, also great in Gruul, but really bad in the other two. So the Timur Wedge, the Timur color combinations, just doing much better than other combinations with those landfall cards. And then we have a bunch of like bad numbers uncommons, the Lashwood Predator, Tapestry Warden, until we got to Hemosymbiotic Might, the 1-drop 1/1 that whenever it gets tapped, it grows and another creature by +X/+X, where X is its power. Horrendous everywhere, but in Celestia it is 0.2, which is absolutely fine to play. And then we have a bunch of other no-goes, including Atmospheric Greenhouse, a card with such bad numbers that, without a fail, beats the bejesus out of me when it's dropped by an opponent. It always drops in the wrong moment where it completely wrecks whatever I was doing. So, win rates are one thing, and then personal experiences are another. For me, Atmospheric Greenhouse is a powerhouse. I'm still not playing it in my decks. It's a powerhouse in my opponent's hands, which makes me wonder, am I just building decks that have blind spot against certain types of cards? And that's why I feel those Atmospheric Greenhouses being good against me, while other people build decks in such ways that the Atmospheric Greenhouse is perfectly negated. Where is my blind spot there? And it's good to think about it when a card seems to be beating you regularly. Is it the card, or is it me building decks in a specific way that makes them susceptible to that specific card type? Cool. And the green rares start with Uroboroid, +8 to +12.3. Card is great in every deck. Just don't even think about not putting it in your green deck, which I assume that it will never happen, that you won't put it in your deck. But then it's pretty shallow pool of rares for the green. Second place is Midnight Might Form Harmonizer, and that one is great in Golgari, +7. No idea why. And +4 in Gruul. But then in Simic and Selesnya is just like plus 1.52, which is great. I mean, it's still a good card. It's probably better than any uncommon or whatever, but it's not like amazing. It's not the same level as Urobroid, that's for sure. And it goes worse from that. Then we have like Frenzied Balot, which is like plus 1.5 in Selesnya and Gruul, but minus 1.5 in Simic, 0 in Golgari. So nothing really to write home about. And Famished World Sire, the 8-drop that devours all your lands and then spits out all the other lands from your deck onto the battlefield and becomes like massive. It's got plus 2 in Selesnya. It's got plus 1.3 in Gruul, but it's got minus 2.3 in Simic. No data for Golgari, so we can't say anything about it. But these are not like amazing numbers for the card. And the last card that actually fulfills any kind of criteria there is Sledge Class Siege Ship, the another spacecraft. When it gets tapped, it can spit out something from your hand to the battlefield, like a creature. This one plus 1.5 in Selesnya, again, sending me to the idea that Selesnya wants chonkers. And around 0 in Simic and Gruul, but pretty bad in Golgari. But that's it. Icesteel Explorer has bad numbers across board, and the alleged lander / plus one counters synergy build around cards, namely Terra Symbiosis, Loading Zone, and Bioengineered Future, between -6 and -14, and only have data for Selesnya and nowhere else. So they look atrocious and horrendous, really. And I think that's the main issue with green. It's pretty powerful at uncommon and pretty powerful at common level, but lacks the chops to be consistently amazing by lack of like super top end rares and things. It does catch up a lot on the multicolor cards. Talking of which, multicolor cards, and we're there almost completely finished. Nothing's really too interesting there. The only thing worth noticing is that Biomechan Engineer has positive numbers in any green color combination. Obviously, plus 4% in its own blue-green, but also plus 3 in Gruul, plus 2 in Orzhov, and plus 0.3 in Selesnya, which probably is the least equipped to splash and least wants to splash. Still has plus numbers there. Then Alfariel, Dreaming Acolyte. The 2/3 enters discard 2 cards unless one of them is an artifact and has Death Touch in return. Plus 2% in its own color pair. Fine. Servandum, the uncommon, plus 1.6 in white-black, but also plus 1.1 in Golgari. Worth noting that it's a valid splash if your deck is mainly black. Interceptor Mechan, the black-red signpost, that one has plus 2.5 in black-red, but still fine 0.5 plus in black-green and around 0 in Gruul. Station Monitor is probably the strongest signpost in its color pair, plus 4 in its own pair. However, it's a very bad splash, according to the data at least. Minus 3.3 when splashed into a Simic deck. It's pretty bad. And then we have like the Halia, the Selesnya one. Fine, it's a 0.2. So 0 basically for its deck. Which means you put it always. It's just not going to be like amazing, but it's not going to be embarrassing either. And then Tanuk, then again, not a great splash, minus 1.6 in Simic decks, but 1.1 plus in its own deck. Menon, Uthros Exile, the 1 blue red 1/3. And whenever an artifact enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. This one has minus 0.8, so not amazing and definitely disappointing for a signpost. Sami's Ship Engineer even worse at -1. And Siege Ship Brute Tender, the Golgari one, is good in Golgari, plus 1.4, but really bad as a splash in blue-green at minus 4.2. So that's the uncommon. multicolor cards. And we have a bunch of multicolor rares, and a bunch of them are really, really strong. Starting with Pinnacle Emissary, the Is It one. That one +6. That's bomb status. Definitely worth picking as a reason to be an Is It. By the way, my trophy deck with Is It from yesterday had exactly Pinnacle Emissary and Possibility Technician, and these cards pulled their weight quite strongly. So yeah, great little card, 3 mana 3/3 that spits out a bunch of 1/1s with flying. Even if you get like a 1 flyer, that's a good deal. For bid, you get 2. Then we have Mutinous Massacre, the Rakdos card that basically you pick odd even and then kill 1/2 and then steal the rest until end of turn. Fair warning, I have lost because I miscast this card. Yesterday I won because my opponent miscast this card. Think hard about what you want to do and don't click odd when you want to click even and vice versa. So yeah, surprisingly this card has the best results in red-green at 6.2% improvement, but it's also great in black-red at +5. So people splash it into Gruul decks even though it's double pipped, and it actually works out, which is wild. Keep in mind that the red-green decks that play Mutinous Massacre will be very different from your run-of-the-mill 56.2% win rate. Then we have the most flexible one of the lot, Genmorph Imago. That one is great in every color combination, slightly worse in Selesnya. It's very much the same numbers as the Biomechan Engineer. Every green adjacent deck wants it, +6 across board, except for Selesnya, where it's +2.5, which is still really, really strong. So Genmorph Imago, probably the best multicolor card in the format, as it can be in multiple homes and is still quite strong. So yeah, Imago is just it can do things. And also like you play your 5th land and in response to the trigger crack a lander. Try that one. Lovely times. Then we have Servondam, the 2 mana one, the rare one, +5. Great. Singularity Rapture, the Wrath in Dimir. Great in Dimir, great in Golgari, +3.5, +4 kind of range. And then Biotech Specialist, the Gruul Signpost Rare, the 1/3 that makes a lander, and whenever you sacrifice an artifact, it deals 2 damage to target opponent. This one, 4.5 in its own home, and Majestic +2 in Simic, which means happy to play it in my Simic deck. And Diadrene Synthesis Amalgam, +4.5 in Selesnya, but only -0.5 in Simic, which means that you can play it, but probably not worth a splash, really. You better do something else, or you have that splash because you also want to have multiple land type synergies and stuff like that. It's so fine. And we will close today. Woo! At Spacetime Anomaly, target player mills cards equal to your life total. It has +0.6 in Azorius decks, which means probably you should play it. I'm still struggling with the idea whether this card is main deckable or is it a sideboard card, because some decks just don't win with it. And my student, by the way, for coaching, if you're interested in coaching, you can get in contact with me. But my student sent me a screenshot, and it was just the graveyard of their opponent in a game that ended on turn 4. And the graveyard was, oh God, I will never memorize the name of this card because I don't play it because it's not so great. There, Sammy's Curiosity. Sammy's Curiosity on turn 1, turn 2, Crack the Lander, turn 3, Space Anomaly, turn 4, Second Space Anomaly. Game over. So yeah, sometimes it will happen like that. And some like slow Dimir deck, they will get hit by space-time anomaly and they're dead on board. And if you have some looting effects in your deck, and you can get rid of that space-time anomaly when it's absolutely useless, it's fine. If you're playing a proactive deck, sometimes you will just like, okay, I'm going to start attacking you because I'm attacking you. You're not attacking me, which means my life is 20. At some stage, I cast space-time anomaly, and then, yeah, maybe you stabilize from there, but do you have time to kill me? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that card plays out. It's a very interesting one, to be sure. Oh, yeah, and Sami Wildcat Captain is actually meh at minus 0.4. That's the rare one with double strike. But okay, with that, 69 people in the chat, which is a nice way to finish that episode. Thanking the 17Lands, especially Viral Misnomer, who is the creator of the site and the person that probably puts most worry and stress into it. Thanks to other ones, and thanks to Jake Brown, who is a lovely person and always requires a thank you. And I'll see you next week when I will probably start looking at the draft data from the 17Lands public repositories and try to figure out some big patterns from the drafting and see where it gets me. But until that, see you next week.